How's it going, everybody? Thank you for joining us today. I'm Carlos, one of your hosts of the Bring on the Blitz podcast, part of the RSKina Podcast Network. And I'm joined here by my co-host, Rios. Rios, how's it going, bud?
This real Christmas is in 9 days. Where has the year gone? This month is going by quick. And the year.
Tell me about it. I get married Thursday.
Congrats.
I'm as shocked as you are. I didn't think anybody wanted me. Right, hon? Love you.
How did you get her to say yes?
Bro, she almost threw a chunklet at me. That's what happened right now when I said that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're ready for now.
Yeah, I'm ready for marriage. That was the last bit of passage right there. That was my last passage right there. Yeah, man. Married Thursday. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. Great lady. Got me a great lady. Es la hermana de papi. No, sure. No, yeah. But as you notice, Poppy's not here today.
Shocking.
Yeah.
In other earth-shattering news, water is wet.
The show just increased 1,000%. No, I'm just kidding. It's always good when he's here. Yeah. All right, man. So hey, let's get started. Let's get into it immediately right after the intro. We're gonna be talking about the Texans O-line, C.J Stroud's performance against the Miami Dolphins. We're gonna then transition over to the defense. We had some playmaker. The Texans had some playmakers on the defensive side of the ball, with some records being broken. All that and more when we come back from the intro. Hit it. How's it going? All right, guys. Thank you for joining us again. Man, what a game against Miami. You know what I thought? I thought it was going to be one of those games where the Texans, kind of play down to the level of competition, but I wasn't taking Miami lightly, and I'm glad the Texans weren't either, because I mean Miami, I think if you let your guard down, much like if you let your guard down, Miami's going to come back and bite you. I mean, I think Tua was coming in like a little bit hot. He was coming in over 300 yards per last game, wasn't he?
He was averaging close to 350 the last few weeks.
Yeah.
Because this game was a must-win for their playoff hopes. Because I mean, the division crown for them is out of reach. Buffalo already won it, but they still have it. They're still in the playoff hunt. But yeah, they're going to need a lot of help. With that loss yesterday.
No, agreed, man. So I did see. We usually let's start off a little bit of the negatives real quick before we move on. Okay, so the O-line had a couple of I'll start off with my negative, I guess. The O-line did have a switch. They switched over Tytus Howard, which is normally in the as a right tackle, and now they moved him a little bit into the interior, correct? And then they put rookie Blake Fisher in the right tackle position. It did make a difference, but still the O-line is a little bit is still a concern. In the aspect of, Miami came in and they're not really known for going after the quarterback, applying pressure, but they still got C.J. Stroud still was sacked 3 times in this game. What are your thoughts on that, Rios?
Yeah, Miami doesn't really do a whole lot of blitzing. They have one of the lowest sack rates in the NFL, and them still being able to get pressure on Stroud. He wasn't, running for his life like we typically see him on Sundays, but he was still, having to navigate a little bit more in the pocket, and kudos to Stroud. There was this one play on 3rd down when I thought he was going to be sacked, but he was able to stay upright just for a half second and get the first down to Tank Dell. That was a great play. But I mean, a lot of that is him making magic happen. But they got the interior is still an issue. Like teams, well, especially if they run like a simple stunt, the guards are still struggling a little bit with that. I understand it was Tytus, first time playing guard in, quite some time, but Shaq Mason, he's getting beat a lot with some of these simple stunts. It's like nothing super exotic. It's basic stunts, and they're still getting, past him pretty easily.
Yeah, that's been a constant really with that interior part, specifically Shaq Mason. I'm not sure what's happening. Again, this is last season. Shaq Mason was coming off one of the better acquisitions that the Texans had, and was one of the more constant guys that was actually healthy in last season's offensive line that was just kind of like a revolving door of guys just kind of getting replaced because of injuries or whatnot. So, yeah, I'm not sure exactly what's been the deal with Shaq Mason, but it's a lot of it has been coming, a lot of pressures and a lot of, he's been getting beat a lot. I don't know if it's father time catching up or whatever it is, but man, it's been rough for Shaq Mason. He's had a rough year this season.
Yeah, last season he was. I don't know. I know some people have said some of it's has to be due with the scheme. I mean, it's pretty much the same scheme as last year, and he looked
Mhm.
night and day different. So I'm not really sure what it is. Maybe you're right. Maybe it is father time. It's the
Yeah,
one time left that's undefeated.
yeah, exactly, 100%. Um, honestly, other than that, I did see a little bit of I saw C.J. Stroud. Obviously, I was not going to be too negative about it, but I did see that was my concern. But I did see an improvement on C.J. Stroud having more time in the pocket to throw the ball, to have time to make a decision to find an open receiver. Yeah, there was still a little bit of there was one particular play where I think he threw to John Mechie that you can say, a little bit faster for John. He could have caught it, but at the same time, maybe the ball was a little too overthrown. It's a give or take, but other than that, I think, but it's part of like getting back to that rhythm of things. CJ hasn't been used to this season of getting that much protection, so of course it's almost like okay, getting back into the rhythm, and I think hopefully it's one of those things where it happens, and that he gets used to it more than ever. So, I want to go back to a quote that was in the press release by the Texans. I want to say, oh, this was Thursday. I'm sorry, no, I take that back. That was a little too far off. um, it was I do want to address some of some of the quote here. Sorry, I clicked on the wrong one by the Texans. I want to see what they had to say about the offensive line, um, and making some improvements or whatnot. So give me 1 second. Actually, there it is. So how they felt, how they felt they handled the switch with Tytus Howard at left guard, and elevated Blake Fisher to the right tackle, as far as communication. So, this was on D'Amico. Yeah, I thought it went great. I thought with Tytus Howard not really practicing there all week, he stepped in and did the best he could. I thought he did really great. I thought that was one of the best interior D lines that we had played this year. I think 92, which is Zach Zeeler, is very underrated. Dolphins tackle Calais Campbell is like the Terminator. He's huge. He's like 6'7", and he's putting his hands up. He's really good. So the interior does a good job. And their D-line coach, hats off to him. They do a good job of pick stunning and things like that. When the time was there, I felt like they did a great job picking those up, and I was able to deliver in those instances. But definitely think they did a great job. For Blake to step in as a young guy is amazing. That's what D'Amico end quote. That's what D'Amico had to say about the change in the offensive line.
Yeah, you definitely saw that improvement as far as pass protection, but the run blocking did take a hit.
Yeah.
Well, I think I can't remember which episode it was that we had mentioned that you want to have your best pass blockers out there, especially as you get later into the season. You start playing
Mhm.
some better teams, the Baltimores and the Kansas Cities of the world, and you need your quarterback upright. You're going to need the quarterback to be able to have time in the pocket, especially against a high-powered team like Buffalo. Buffalo, we saw them yesterday. They put up 48 against the Lions. You got to be able to put up points, and I guess they made a choice. Like, you know what, we're going to focus on pass protection, try to give a quarterback a little bit more time. But the run game took a hit, and we saw yesterday Mixon struggled mightily. He was, what would he have, like 2.2 yards a carry or something like that?
I got you. Give me 1 second just to make sure. I was logging I was logging into that one. Hold on. Yeah, to back up your point, yeah, the run game has struggled in the last two consecutive games. To back you up on that one, yeah, Joe Mixon had 12 attempts, 12 carries. I apologize, for 23 yards, and he was averaging 1.9 yards
Yeah.
um, per carry. So big hit. His longest run was of 5 yards, really, and then and then if I were to go back, I want to say to week 13 against the against the Jacksonville Jaguars, the run game took a hit also, and that was Joe Mixon. Actually, no, not really. I take that back. He ran for 101 yards, average 5.1 per carry. But there have been games where Mixon has kind of struggled a little bit against the run. I think it was against the Titans. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Joe Mixon on
it
that
was,
one against the Titans back in week 12
yeah, the
when they
Titans.
lost. He rushed for he had 14 rushing attempts for 22 yards, average 1.6, which is kind of very similar to what they did. Or maybe the defensive scheme to shut down the run was effective for Miami, just like it was for against Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, they watched the film, and if you take away the outside zone runs, they kind of struggle a little bit because you don't have your best run blockers out there right now. Right now, they have their best pass blockers out there, and it's going to take a hit, but they're going to have to get a little bit creative and try to use some different ways to incorporate the run game. Like you can use screens to the running backs, dump it out to the running backs in the flat, which we saw a little bit more of, which I have been kind of clamoring for the team to start doing. Like because Mixon is a pretty good pass catcher. It's kind of baffling that they don't really utilize him a little bit more as a receiver as well. Because I had him in fantasy for years, and I would watch a lot of the Bengals games, and he would be lined up wide at receiver. They didn't throw to him a whole ton, but he has ability to do that. So they've got to find different ways to get him the ball.
There was a few. I think he made like one catch or two, but they don't use him as often, like you said. I agree wholeheartedly with that. They don't really use him in the pass as well. That's a guy that you can kind of use as a dump pass or whatnot. Once all your receivers are either in tight coverage or whatnot. But Mixon is the guy that you kind of just go and dump the ball off for one of your tight ends.
Yeah, play calling, some of that's just CJ basically not taking the easy thing with take what the defense gives you. But again, it's second year, he's gonna growing pains.
So speaking of C.J. Stroud, this particular game, he was 18 to 26 for 131 yards. He did have 2 touchdowns under his belt, 0 interceptions, which is great. It's always great to see. And he had a 106.4 rating. Much better performance when C.J. I'm telling you, when C.J. Stroud has some time in the pocket, he can do wonders. Case in point, what you brought up earlier, one of those, he was going down. Threw it to, I can't remember if it was it Mechie? No, I can't remember. Somebody caught it. I don't know.
It was Tank Dell.
One more time.
It was Tank Dell.
Tank Dell, yeah, and he caught it, and it was that C.J. Stroud magic that you were used to seeing last season. A little bit of shades, and then I think a lot of I'm pretty sure a lot of people miss seeing that because every time you see him this season, he's just kind of like running for cover if you think about it, but. Honestly, I think we brought up the point that there has been some regression, but when you see situations like this, now while I understand that the stats are they show it's a down quote unquote game for C.J. Stroud with having that less of yards. The 2 touchdowns alone are pretty impressive. And one of those came in the second half. What again? I know it's raining outside probably, but. It's one of those occasions where, hey, something is kind of clicking. And I'm hoping it's clicking. Sorry, my dog's right there. Something is kind of clicking, and I'm thinking hopefully it's starting to click right in the just at the right time when the Texans start heading into the playoffs. By the way, AFC champions, Houston Texans, divisional champions, back-to-back seasons. Pretty impressive. What do you think?
They made a little bit of history yesterday. Stroud and DeMeco Ryans, they are the first second-year quarterback and head coach to win back-to-back division titles.
Oh yeah, they broke a lot of records. More of those. A little bit on the defense. Yeah. Yeah. So, what did you think about C.J. Stroud's performance yesterday?
I think he played a very efficient game. He didn't have to do a whole. Didn't have to do a whole lot. Didn't have to carry the load. I think the defense put them in a lot of short yardage situations. Well, short gave them a lot of short fields, which definitely helped out. Like most of their touchdown plays, they didn't have to march down the field. The one thing I will say that is a little concerning is the red zone efficiency. They settle for field goals way too often, especially considering some of the short fields that they got yesterday from the defense. They got to figure out a way to be more effective in the red zone and touchdowns on the board instead of field goals. You can get away with that against teams that are struggling on offense. You can't always rely on the defense to bail you out. You got to be able to put points on the board and sustain drives. There was a lot of 3-and-outs, a lot of punts. They got to get more efficient on the offensive side of the ball to help the defense out.
No, agreed. Those 3-and-outs are detrimental for your defense as well, and that's just a chain of effect that has happened during this season of the Texans. You know, your offense goes 3-and-out, become inefficient. Guess what happens to your defense? Your defense is elite. Honestly, I think the defense can compete with the best of the best out there. It's time for like the offense to catch up on that. But honestly, that defense is stout. It's elite. But what happens when you keep going you keep having 3-and-outs, that elite defense starts to wear down eventually. Too much time spent on the field, big plays start happening, and then they give up yardage, and that's how you start losing games.
Yeah, we saw it against the Detroit Lions. They had a lead, but the second half, the offense just became stagnant, and they couldn't sustain drives, and the Lions put up a run, and they ended up winning the game.
Yeah. And it's crazy because that was a winnable game for the Houston Texans, and I think if they would have made if the offense, not to go back too much into it, but if the offense does what it was supposed to do and becomes and is efficient, like you would be looking at a team that could have gone in with that momentum into the playoffs, saying, you know what, we beat the Detroit Lions, we beat the Lions on prime time, at the time being one of the most dominant offenses in the league. And still they are, but that game against Buffalo was pretty insane too.
It was. No, but it's crazy. Like, if they had taken care of business against the Packers, the Lions, and the Titans, this division would have been wrapped up weeks ago.
Yeah. And remember what before the season started, it was, can the Texans defeat all of these teams can the Texans succeed this season going off against teams that were over 500, that were 500 and over? Remember that stat?
Yeah.
At the very beginning of the season, we were the ones that put up that stat, and it kind of blew up a little bit on Twitter. It was our first post for the Bring on the Blitz. And it blew up a little bit on Twitter because people were debating it. No, they can. Yes, they can. Texans are sitting here 9-5, AFC South champions. Now, of course, you can argue the division isn't as strong as it should be. Yes, but at the end of the day, they've gone against they've gone against teams. I can't think of a game that hasn't really been winnable as opposed to just the Minnesota game.
Yeah, that's the only one where they just had no chance of winning. But every other game they've been in, and they were 1-score losses.
Correct.
I think the only one that wasn't a 1-score loss was the Jets game.
Right.
But it was they had opportunities to win that game. It was just one of many trap games they've had against the Jets the last couple of seasons.
And seem to be the Jets at MetLife.
Yeah, that's been their kryptonite the last 2 seasons.
Yeah. All right. I want to move on because I want to move on to the defense now, man. Big defensive shout outs again. I stand with what I said, that this Texans defense is elite, can hang with the best of the best. And it's just if that offense gets it going, this is the dangerous Texans team. If that offense can put up numbers like they did last season, this is a Super Bowl caliber team. Yeah, I'll go in and say that this is a Super Bowl caliber team because that defense can hang. It's just that offense that kind of keeps them down at the moment. But, we have seen teams that have had a stout defense that have been carried into the Super Bowl. Look at the Broncos.
Perfect example. The Kansas City Chiefs this season. They're at.
Oh, yeah.
Mahomes hasn't looked like the Mahomes we're used to seeing. He has looked very pedestrian this year. Numbers aren't really there. The offense isn't putting up a ton of points, but their defense has been elite as well, and they've been the main reason they've won a lot of games this season.
Yeah,
the defense keeps the score close. The offense does just enough to win games, and I think that's probably going to be the formula for the Texans going forward. To limit the amount of damage that the other team does as far as putting up points. The offense has to do its job and be efficient and finish drives. Not settling for field goals.
No, exactly. That you can't set up a field goals. That's what I mean by this offense. If it stays as stagnant as it is, it's not a contender. But the defense, I think it can handle that. Going back to what I said. Now, do I believe this is a Super Bowl team right now? Absolutely not. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying that if the defense, I think, is offense, not at the moment, but if they were to turn it up like they did last season, you're looking at a whole different team right here. That's my whole point. Okay, so sorry, I know we kind of drifted off a little bit, but going back to the defense, a lot of defensive shout outs that we have going on. I have my own, and I think Rios has his own as well. So this person does not get my flowers, but definitely deserves all the respect out there. Henry To'oTo'o, man, Henry To'oTo'o this season, I don't think anybody really it wasn't a guy that was supposed to really step up in the for the Texans, but he has really been a huge asset for the Houston Texans at the linebacker position. Like, yes, he's had missed tackles, but it's almost like he makes up for them, you know? And so honestly, Henry To'oTo'o himself has been again a big, an amazing thing. I think he was rated. I think he got this week. He got an 81.3 PFF rating on out there, and then he had 11 tackles, half a sack, and a forced fumble. Those are some great numbers for Henry To'oTo'o, and he's been very consistent on defense for the Texans this year.
Yeah, he definitely stepped up with the suspension of Alshire. He was the one, wearing the green dot helmet, so he's the one communicating the assignments, and he had himself a game.
Yeah.
And another welcome addition to the defense that I'm sure they've missed him the entire season. It was Harris County himself, Christian Harris. That guy was all over the field. And, that's an element that the Texans have been missing as far as their linebacking core goes, because he's a true sideline linebacker. And we saw him just come out of nowhere and make plays.
Yeah, so for Christian Harris, I want to bring up his stats real quick. Oops, sorry, Christian Harris. He did have himself a game for being back after when did he get
he was injured in training camp.
He got put in the IR August 27th. I remember because that was my birthday. But he was put into IR on August 27th, and supposedly it was for was it a hamstring or a calf muscle? I can't remember that.
It was they initially said it was a calf strain, but considering he missed 13 games, I'm pretty sure it was a much more significant injury.
Yeah,
but they just kept it as it was a calf strain.
Yeah, they kept it as a calf strain, but I mean, honestly, I think they got Christian Harris right during the time that they needed him at the most. So coming in this particular game, he had 8 total tackles, 4 of them were solo tackles, and that's about it. Now it doesn't seem like much, but I mean, coming back from injury on week 15 and to be all over the field like that, I think he had a pretty decent game. So shout out to Christian Harris as well for being out there, man. His presence was definitely missing. Of course, since Jalen Petrie update from the last episode, Jalen Petrie is done for the season with a partially pec injury. I mean, when I heard pec injury, I'm thinking I don't think he would be back from it. Shades of Mario Williams back in 2011 in that Raiders game when he went out with a pec injury himself, and that was the end of that season. Ended up going to Buffalo immediately the season after with a contract, and then that's where you got to see J.J. Watt come in the picture right before Mario Williams, and what a substitution that was for Mario Williams. I think that guy might end up being a Hall of Famer, Reels. I don't know.
Hey, we'll see.
That J.J. Watt guy did pretty well for himself, didn't he?
Right. Speaking of pass rushers, big shout outs to the 2 edge rushers, Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. I'd said before the season, I predict both of them to have double-digit sacks, and that came to fruition. Will Anderson recorded the sack yesterday, which brought his season tally up to 10.5, and then Daniil Hunter got a sack also, which brought his season total up to 11.5. I believe he's top 3 or top 4 as far as total sacks for the season. I mean, those guys have really, really put together a season that's arguably the best in the league right now.
So Rios, it looks like I'm looking at the ESPN stats. It looks like they gave him he's at 12 now.
Oh,
Uh,
half step.
yeah, but he's second. He's second right now. Yeah. So that's impressive to
Yeah,
have a guy to have Daniil Hunt who's, again, such an underrated player. You
very
know,
underrated.
such an underrated player to come in from Minnesota and then just put up this level of production. That spin move, bro, that he puts on people, that spin move, nobody sees it coming. It's hilarious. Shades of JJ Watt, really. Remember JJ Watt had the spin move similar to that. And so,
My favorite thing is the way he sacks some of the quarterbacks. Like it's like he just
oh
dives
yeah,
on top of them.
you can't see him. Like I'm telling you, the when I met him for the first time in the Texans locker room, dude, I was like this. Hey.
Yeah, when we saw him in training camp, that's a massive human being.
He looked massive from like 100 feet away.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we got Christian Harris. Okay, so now I'm gonna give my flowers to my player. I want to give a big shout out. So at the beginning of the season, during draft time when the Texans drafted Kalen Bullock, we did I remember at one point saying this dude's a ball hawk. And he was a ball hawk at USC, the bright spot of the USC Trojan defense last season. Because let's be honest, that defense for USC last season was atrocious. But he was one of the bright spots, and he was a ball hawk. And guess what? That has translated over to the NFL. Kalen Bullock being a ball hawk intercepted Tua yesterday. He had one interception on him. Kalen Bullock, like he has been what an addition in a late round for the Texans. Like that was an amazing pick. And people kept saying it he was going to be an amazing pick. I mean, in the season so far he's had in the season alone, I mean, he's well over 44 apologize. Yeah, 44 regular tackles, 29 solo. He's fifth. He's tied for fourth place. He's tied for fourth in interception with the one and only Derek Stingley, his teammate right there next to him. Derek Stingley with 5 interceptions in the league. Again, as a rookie, like you're already making these types of not breaking records, but you're already like cementing your name as your rookie season. And then not only that, fun, interesting fact that I thought was hilarious. Kalen Bullock with that, I think it was 68-yard interception that he had on Tua, had more yards than both Tyreek Hill and Nico Collins combined.
I think he had the most receiving yards out of anyone yesterday.
Out of anyone, yeah. It was crazy stat. But man, obviously my flowers go to Kalen Bullock. Kalen Bullock deserves it. There was that scary hit on Dubois, I believe. That lasted a long time, was very scary. They had to take his jersey off. It was a very scary moment. I called true story. I called Rios on the phone as this was happening. I was like, dude, this doesn't look good. It looks pretty bad. And so me and Rios and I were just kind of looking at this like, wow, it's the amount of time it took and just like the personnel that was all over the field surrounding Dubois, hoping he's doing better. I think he stayed overnight here in a Houston facility, but it was a scary hit, unintentional, of course. Even Kalen Bullock in the locker room, he was very like, hey, it was unintentional. You don't mean for these things to happen, and it's true, and not bringing back the Aziz thing at all. Just that's not what I'm going with that. But it's just more like this is one of those cases where nobody felt like there was an altercation. Nobody took it the long way. Yes, people here on Twitter do that, but what do they know? But that other than that, it's just it was Twitter's going to be Twitter always, or X is going to be X, whatever. But other than that, it was just an unfortunate event that had happened. But the fact that it happened to Kalen like Bullock, it was crazy. It was a wild image to see. But nonetheless, man, after all that, knowing that Dubois is doing better now, and then with Kalen having the season that he's having, honestly, what an acquisition, what a draft pick. Nick Cassera does it again.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised we don't hear more buzz about him being defensive rookie of the year. I mean, he's
numbers,
interceptions. You don't really he doesn't get a whole lot of buzz, which is a little weird, but
Yeah. What about you, man? Who's your who gets your flowers this week?
Well, you mentioned his name earlier, just who's tied with Kalen Mook with 5 interceptions, Mr. Derek Stingley.
Yeah.
So
Tell him, Rio.
back in 2021, there was a big debate, and it's funny because I think someone recently showed a video from that draft because the Texans were picking ahead of the Jets.
Yeah.
And it was announced that Houston was going to go with Derek Stingley over Sauce Gardner. The Jets, their front office was celebrating, that. Yeah, well, they can't believe that we picked Houston picked Derek Stingley over, over Sauce, and they were celebrating. And at the time, it was, it was debatable, like which one was better. My argument for them going with Stingley is like this guy lined up against some of the best receivers at LSU. He was going head to head in practice against Jamar Chase, against Justin Jefferson. And he was holding his own against those guys.
Yeah, he was.
On him was his injury concerns
in his freshman year too, right?
Yep.
The
big thing with him was just the injuries.
Yeah.
But if people were like when they drafted him, they were hoping to see that pre-injury, ceiling. Like if he could stay healthy, like he has all the tools to be an elite cornerback in the NFL. And we're starting to see it now. He had injuries last season. He missed a good chunk of the year, and he came back towards the end and finished the season with 5 interceptions. And here we are a year later, and he has 5 interceptions again. And there's still 3 games to go, so he may be able to increase that number. So yesterday, he made a little bit of NFL history himself. He's the first cornerback in NFL history to have 2 interceptions and 2 tackles for losses in NFL history.
Yeah.
Top 2 cornerback, and he's not number 2.
Yeah, he had an incredible game. I think he's also the first for the first how do you call it, in franchise history to get 5 interceptions back to back in the month of December. Something about the month of December and Derek Stingley go hand in hand.
Yeah, he was the highest graded Texans player yesterday from PFF. His grade was 92.2.
Yeah. It has been what a season for Derek Stingley Jr. Like
and the way he sealed the win yesterday for the Texans. That interception was just a thing of beauty,
bro. The way he does it, and it's against Tyreek Hill too.
Because when you go back and look at it in slow mo, that was a catch. He just
was a catch.
Out of his hand. He took it
right out, bro. That was a catch to Tyreek. Oh, that impressive. All right, so we're about to go in a little bit. But I wanted to see. Give me 1 second. I'm looking to see at what they thought on. Let me see. This is McDaniels. I'm looking to see what they thought about Derek Stingley.
I think that I asked some of the players, and they were like, "No, they admitted they tried to test him because they weren't really sure about him." It's one of those where. What's that meme where it says F around and find out? They most certainly did yesterday. He did give a touchdown to Jonnu Smith, but that was kind of a busted play.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, he had himself a game.
Yeah, no, 100%. All right, so this is what D'Amico said. They asked him thoughts on cornerback Derek Stingley Jr.'s performance. Like, yes, D'Amico said, yeah. Stingley was just moving around pretty much however they lined up. We have a game plan adjustments, of course. What? Of course, we made some adjustments there when Dolphins wide receiver Jalen Waddle went out, knowing that Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill was their most explosive guy. It would be in our best interest to make sure our best cover guy was on their best receiver.
Yeah, we saw that all game. We saw it last year in the playoff game when he was shadowing Amari Cooper.
Yeah,
and that's something I would like to see a little bit more of. Maybe not the entire game, but definitely, especially in key situations, having him shadow the team's best receiver. They kind of shied away from it in that Vikings game, and at that point, it got out of hand because you have Justin Jefferson going against Eric Murray. I mean, it's a mismatch every single day of the week.
Yeah, 100%. So the last thing, one of the last things.
Oh, go ahead.
One of the last things I wanted to talk about before we go was Frank Ross, that trick play on special teams with Agundawale and ran it. Look, I'm not gonna lie to you. It looked like it was for like a quick minute. It looked like it was a fumble, like he had fumbled it. But the way he got up, he knew he was down before the ball came out. So like it didn't really like, so that's what kind of threw me off a little bit. But what a call. What a gutsy call. And I know for most Texans fans, seeing a gutsy call on special teams can be a little bit
Traumatic.
if you were watching the Texans versus the Chiefs game with Bill O'Brien at the helm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bill O'Brien, the Kansas City Chiefs, Saturday.
Yeah. And that's what I was gonna say. So also big shout out to Frank Ross. Gutsy call, but it paid off really well. Amazing call. Right before we go, Patrick Mahomes, does he play against the Texans on Saturday at noon? What do you think?
If I'm the Chiefs, I would hold him out for two reasons. You almost essentially have the number one seed locked up, and they have a short week as well, just like Houston does. Both teams have to turn around and play on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
So do you really risk it against, especially with a defensive front like Houston's, that it gets a lot of sacks, gets a lot of pressure? Do you really want your quarterback out there with a high ankle sprain? So his mobility is going to be a little lacking. Do you really want to put him out there? Like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Now, if they were fighting for a playoff seeding, I can see them putting him out there, but I think they rest him Saturday, and he more than likely takes the field Christmas Day against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I think that's the way they're going to go too. I don't think there's not much that they have to lose as well. Yes, they're probably trying to get home field advantage or whatnot. I don't know if they have it already. That I can't tell off the top of my head, but I don't think they do.
Close between them and
the first round bye. Is it the first round bye? I think that's where it is. The first round bye. First round bye. Yeah. Sorry, I was like, no, I think they have home field advantage. It's just the first round bye that they're trying to get. So that's really all they're really going for. But is you have to think: is it worth risking your quarterback right now with a high ankle sprain against the Texans defense that really goes after the quarterback?
Yeah.
Or not? That's something that the Chiefs really have to think upon. But it'll be interesting to see what develops as the week goes by. But nonetheless, we will find out next week, next Tuesday when this episode is released, next Tuesday when the following episode gets released, episode 28, and we'll see the aftermath of the Chiefs Texans game. So in the meantime, y'all don't forget to subscribe to our channel right there below at BBlitzPod. Again, follow us on our Instagram account as well at BBlitzPod, and of course our X account at BBlitzPod. Just as you see it here. And of course, all of this and more is part of the Areskina network. Here, follow Areskina on the X account at Areskina. And of course, that also goes for their Instagram account. That's going to be it for us this week. Again, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for us if you want to keep seeing more of our mugs. And that'll be it for us this week. We will see y'all next week as soon as I find the outro on this thing. And that'll be it. Peace.